Hello, and welcome to the Fashion Minority Alliance Digital Festival. It's my pleasure to be part of this exciting panel discussion on menopause. First off, I think it would be great if we could all introduce ourselves and say a little bit about what we do, so everyone watching can know who we are. Joy, can we start with you?
Yeah, sure. I'm Joy Montgomery, and I run a company called On Screen, and we provide a concierge service for the film and TV industry. So we source a lot of products for the directors, the producers, the cast and the crew, in a way to kind of offset their costs by looking for deals for them, or finding products that we can negotiate kind of like barter deals. So our main aim is to kind of source products at the best possible price. And going forward, we've now kind of focusing on sustainability and trying to get more sustainable products on screen and behind the scenes as well.
Thank you. Henrietta, could you tell us a bit about what you do?
Yes, of course. So I'm a nutritional therapist, have been for 18 years. I'm also the author of a couple of books in women's health, so on pregnancy and on hormonal health. And I am the co-founder of a company called Wild Nutrition, which is a food supplement brand where we make food supplements from very natural sources, specifically around the different life stages that men and women go through and supporting them through those.
Thank you. Susanna?
I'm a personal stylist based here in London, and I work with men and women, but mostly women, on their personal style. I actually started out as a lawyer, so I was in the corporate world for a number of years, and sort of finally got to that point where I just decided to follow my passions, and that's in style and fashion. And so I now help women and men to dress in a way that makes them feel confident and their, real authentic selves.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be able to discuss this topic with all of you, because you're all visible characters in this unfolding story. And I think that's really what we're looking for. We're looking for visibility as we tell this story. A little bit about myself. My name is Koyo. I'm a nutritional health coach. I'm the co-founder of a company called Forwardry.com, and we aim to be the collective of well-being and healthcare practitioners who are really dedicated to helping every woman fulfill their potential through this chapter of life. The big goal is to create a movement that challenges the cultural narrative and change what 50 looks like for us and for the women coming up behind us. So let's begin. We've entitled this talk, Celebrating the Change. And I just want to caveat that this isn't to minimize the oftentimes debilitating symptoms that women experience when they go through this period of life. But however, it does seem to me that there's becoming a more awareness that perhaps the negative narrative is contributing to some of those symptoms. There's data to suggest that women who experience menopause in cultures which venerates aging and there is more visibility of women as they age, women experience fewer debilitating and negative symptoms. And the opposite is true of women who are in sort of youth-centric cultures, experience more negative symptoms. So I just think, I think I'm thrilled to talk through our stories and our individual experiences for ourselves or for others in our world. So let's hear the good, the bad, and the ugly. And just to contextualize it all, I want to sort of cover maybe three main topics. And so, for example, I heard a quote, which perhaps you can discuss, which is there are two certainties in life. You either die young or you grow old. And we need to own the privilege, really, of arriving where we are. And why not make an art of it? So that's really where I think I'd like to sort of, center the talk around, and then discuss our own stories, like we say. And if we have time, would it be of interest to perhaps think about how we could mark, we're in menopause month, and in fact, we've just passed menopause day, but is that enough? Do we need more? Do we need, like, can we have a 51st that we celebrate? Or a bit like the bar mitzvahs, where we acknowledge that this is a real transitional time. So enough said, let's kick it off, and let's start with our individual stories, and feel free to jump in, I think, if there's something that resonates, or if there's something that you want to sort of bring to the discussion. So Joy, maybe you want to start and tell us where you are now and how you got here.
Yeah, so now I feel almost like what I would call myself again. So, but I decided to go onto HRT, or to take HRT. I did a lot of research on it, because back in the day, there was quite a lot of negative information about HRT and the risks involved. But it's come a long way sort of from my parents' time. And so I started taking HRT, and I have to say, it really did just change everything for me. My whole outlook changed completely. Right. I don't think I would, if we were like prior to that, I don't think I'd be sitting here even wanting to talk to you, because I wouldn't have had the energy to even do it.
Right.
But yeah, so I feel like I'm sort of gone through this journey where, and I suppose it is a celebration in a way, that I've made it. I've come out the other end, and I feel great again. I suppose it's a bit like childbirth, isn't it? When you have a child, it's like, I'm never doing that again. But the rewards are so great, and the results are so great. So I'm kind of in a really good place now.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, so I'm very happy where I am at the moment.
And was there a pivotal time that you can point to? I met an older woman when I was really struggling, and sort of bemoaning to her, and she said, just wait. There will be a time when your real self, and not your self of 5 years or 10 years, but yourself, almost your prepubescent self, will come and reintroduce herself to you. And I can't tell you when, but trust me, it will happen. Is that your experience? Is that what I'm hearing?
I was watching Lorraine, actually, and they had the TV presenter, Carol, she used to do Countdown, I can't remember her surname, but she was on talking about, and she's quite a very bubbly, very sort of optimistic person, and she was talking about how difficult the menopause had been for her and how she was struggling. And she said that she went on medication. And up until then, I've really been trying not to sort of take anything apart from sort of natural vitamins and things like that. But when I heard her speak, and I heard her talk about the transition from before and after, that was kind of a point where I thought, okay, I think it's okay to investigate that. I think it's okay to ask for help. I don't need just to be, oh, I'm going to do this by myself, and I'm a strong woman and I don't need any help. It's okay to ask for help. And I think there was a time where there were a lot of celebrities coming forward and sort of talking about the menopause. And I think we have come quite a bit of a way where people do talk about it now. I don't think it's like on Mother's Day when it was very hush hush. So for me, listening to her and her story, and kind of seeing that she had very similar emotions to myself, kind of gave me permission to think, okay, well, maybe I do need some medication. Maybe I do need to go to the doctor and talk to them.
And are you saying that there was an instant change? It was like light and day, or someone switched the lights on?
It was sort of, I'd say, after the first month of taking the tablets, yes. And slowly up into that, I could feel a difference, in the sense that I wanted to get up, that I wanted to get dressed, and I wanted to engage again. And I was suddenly thinking, oh, it was almost like a veil had been lifted a little bit, and it's sort of like, and I suddenly thought, oh, wow, okay. And yeah, for me, I don't know what I would do if they suddenly said you have to come off HRT, because it's been a lifesaver for me, but yeah.
Thank you. Henrietta, can you tell us your story? And
yeah, so I suppose my currency for being here today would probably be more as a professional than a woman having gone through the menopause myself, because I'm 45, I'm certainly in that perimenopausal stage. And I think for me, that's one of the areas, both personally and professionally, that I feel needs a lot more education, a lot more awareness, because it's actually the time preceding the menopause that is so influential to our experience of the menopause as well. And there's a whole opportunity there for empowerment and to obtain knowledge about how we can support ourselves during that time as well. But on a professional level, I've worked with hundreds of women going through this stage of life. And I would say that it's a kind of a sadness almost that so many have found it so debilitating. And as Joy alluded to, when there isn't necessarily that need. And I think the rhetoric has been to date culturally that it's a moment in a woman's life that is almost hushed up, and it's not shared, and there's shame around it, and it's associated with aging and our culture of anti-aging and wanting to age. I think that all contributes to a very silent discourse, or discourse that is not happening at the volume that it should be, and is beginning to happen. I mean, that's why we're here today as well, isn't it? But I think for me certainly, I would say that there aren't that many opportunities in a woman's life where we get called to question to ourselves, where we hold up the mirror to ourselves and really get to look into our own eyes and say, who am I? What am I about? And I don't know if you're familiar with a writer called Christiane Northrup, who's written a lot on women's health, and she's got a beautiful book called Women's Wisdom, Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom, which I think is beautiful, because I think that this time in our life, I think there are two, as I was saying, there are two times in our lives where we're really called to do that. And one of those is sort of moving into adolescence, where our identity is to separate from our relationship to others and more about our relationship to ourselves and questioning who we are. And then again, I think it happens again at this stage in our life, where we may have spent 10, 15 years prior to that in the strive and drive mode of our life, where it has been, and I say this as a mother, and I know there are many other women who are mothers who have spent a lot of time being of service to others, and finding it far too easy to sacrifice, compromise on one's own sense of self in order to do that. And I think that's compounded as well by having a. Can you still see me? Mine's gone.
No, I can see you.
Can you still see me?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, it just suddenly disappeared from my screen. But I think that that's compounded as well by, the desire to have a career as well. And so all of those things, and as Joy again alluded to, I think you said something about childbirth. I think that with every change, and I love that terminology, change in life, it's not a medical condition, it's not something that's going wrong, it's a natural change in life. I think that it's, with that natural change comes a transition stage of discomfort, just like childbirth, where having had 3, I know how many times that I can't do this, I don't want to do it, stop it. And actually, another example where you can't hold it back. This is happening to you. This is happening to your body. So we have to embrace it. We in whatever way we have, and the way to embrace it for me and what I've seen with clients is it's embracing through education, it's embracing through knowledge, it's embracing through conversation with women. So that sisterhood, collective kind of conversation, and conversation with professionals, asking for the help, asking for the advice. And now, fortunately, we're in a position where, there is a lot of information to have. There's a lot of information available, and it's easier to find that as well.
But you're right. Can I just add to that very quickly? Yeah. I think a lot of women would have been scared to say, if they were still in their careers, that they were going through the menopause, because it did have this kind of stigma attached to it that, well, she's done with, she's over, that's, and I think a lot of women would have hid it back like 10, maybe 10 years ago, would have kept it quiet, So we were in a great time to be going through it, really. I suppose that is a celebration as well.
Yeah, that is. And Suzanne, you're not yet in the throes of it like some of us are, but obviously, you will be at some point in time, but you come across women as a stylist who are in the menopause. And what's your experience there? Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, as for my own experience, I'm ashamed to say I don't know a lot about it. And I think that's because traditionally there hasn't been these discussions going on.
Mm.
And I watched the Davina McCall documentary recently, which was just eye-opening, amazing. Like, this amazingly vibrant, cool woman is just laying it out there and giving us facts and information. And I think, look, let's have more of this, because it takes away that shroud of negativity or whatever that is, that sort of, it has to be a taboo topic. It's not. It's like I said earlier, it's a normal thing that every woman is going to go through. So, you know, I'm just at the beginning of that journey of learning a lot more about it, and it's all about information. And I'm so glad that there are things like podcasts and these shows and these kind of forums now where we can talk about it. But as for, you know, what I do and my experience of it with my clients is that they do come to me, like I said before, where it's almost like a bit of an identity crisis, because, you know, you get to your 40s and you kind of, that's when you sort of hit in your stride in a way, in that you know who you are, you don't care so much what people think of you, you sort of probably doing well in your career if you've chosen to go down a career path, and then all of a sudden you're hit with this, you know, this event in your life and this time in your life where it makes you question everything. And, you know, image has a lot to do with it. And I think that we dismiss style and fashion as something frivolous, where so many studies have been done that show that what you wear has a direct impact on how you feel and your mood. And so it really is, I see it as another tool that you can use to improve your mood, your well-being. It's the same as, you know, we meditate. We're all told we should be meditating. We're told, you know, work out, go to the gym, look at your diet. Your wardrobe and what you wear is just another one of those tools in your what you have available to you to actually really make a difference to your life and how you feel about yourself, as well as how other people see you and perceive you. And so I work with clients to really get, it's almost like a therapist, where you talk to them about, well, you know, who are you and what are you about, and what this next stage of your life, what do you want that to be about, and come up with sort of these adjectives. And so that when we have their adjectives, we make sure that what they wear expresses that and just basically embodies who they are, so that when they get dressed, they're really dressing in a way that's really authentic to them. And from that comes this confidence and just sort of mood boosting kind of qualities that comes from dressing well. So I'm a really big believer that clothes really do make a difference.
Yeah, I agree. I think when I was happy to sit on the sofa in my tracksuit bottoms, at the time it felt great, and I wasn't, you know, oh, I just can't be bothered. But the minute I do get dressed, put a little bit of makeup on, or sometimes no makeup, but I make a little bit of effort, I do feel better in myself. So
Yeah.
I agree 100%. I think it's like a whole holistic thing. You've got to do exercise if you can, or walk, you've got to eat well, you've got to take vitamins, you've got to do lots of things.
Yeah.
But I think acceptance is the most important thing, isn't it? Getting ready to accept this is you now, and not look back and think, yeah, but I'm not like, no, you're never going to be.
Yeah.
But accept this person now, who you are.
Yeah. And I think, and one of the other things I mentioned earlier was feeling like you have to dress in an age appropriate way, which I just disagree with completely, because again, it just comes back to, it's not dressing for your age, it's dressing for who you are. So it's dressing for your own personal style, for your body. And there are so many ways that you can, if you know, because there is a bit of weight gain that comes with, not necessarily, but a lot of cases it comes with menopause. And so there's ways of dressing in a way that's really flattering, and you don't, you know, it's a way of identifying, well, what do you love about your body, and then enhancing those parts of your body that you love. So even if it's your eyes, there's so many styling tricks and things that you can do in terms of colors and fabrics and styles that you can do to just basically enhance the parts of your body that you love. And I'm all about finding out what those parts are and how we can make the most of them.
I'm really, thank you, Susanna, and I'm really am interested in this, because a lot of times you lose who you are. You know, in times of massive transition and upheaval, you're not sure who you are. And I think, and also, can we talk a bit about how the culture almost dictates to some extent who we are. And as Henrietta was saying, that this is an opportunity for us to sort of rethink. So really accept, as Joy said, and then, okay, we're in this difficult situation. We don't know who we are. The culture's telling us that we're one thing. The patriarchy is telling us that we need to sort of, you know, dress appropriately in a desirable way. So there's all these conflicting things coming at us. And there was one thing on your website I read, Henrietta, which says, discovery consists of looking at the same thing as everyone else and thinking something different. And when I read that, I thought, well, isn't that powerful? And how can we use that principle in where we are now? Because there's almost a miseducation or a new learning that we need to do. Well, I don't know what your thoughts are about that.
Well, funnily enough, one of the things that I hear very often in clinic, and I hear amongst my peer group as well, is a woman might say, I need to find myself. And I say, I just want to tweak that slightly. It's refinding yourself, because it's always been there. It's just reconnecting. It's the opportunity again. And it really is a gift, and albeit can be an uncomfortable gift as well. So I'm not negating, you know, the discomfort that can come with that. But it is about refinding, it's re-tapping in, it's finding, you know, it's going back to your roots and working and reconnecting with that, and then bringing it forward to where you are in your life now as a woman. And I love that Susanna's talking about that style, because it's a very visual representation of really knowing who you are, and I know it's an overused phrase, but really owning that as well, and saying, I'm unashamed of that. This is who I am. And, you know, I hope you like it. If you don't, then that's okay too.
And is it a time of experimenting, Susanna? Do you find people are open to experimenting with their look at this time?
Some are, but a lot of people, I think that it's about building confidence gradually. I think it's really hard to do a complete transformation, because a lot of people are thinking, oh, well, what will my husband say? What will my family say? Because for so long, perhaps they've been put in a box of like, well, this is mum and this is how she dresses. And, you know, so it's a real, they feel it's too much to completely change it. So I work with them to gradually introduce things. So if it's a matter of introducing colour or different kinds of like really sort of statement pieces that you can gradually introduce, and then testing them out as well. So it's, yeah, it's not necessarily always a complete overnight transformation. It's a process, because you need to sort of basically kind of grow into that and become comfortable with that person that you're becoming as well.
Yeah. Did you find that, Joy?
Yeah, I think it's like when sometimes you'll watch something and they'll say, oh, he's changed so much. Yeah, well, everyone changes, you know, and it's like, no one is going to be the same person that they were when they were a teenager. Well, I hope not. But so change, if you can kind of think, right, I'm going to actually take on this change and see who I am. And I'm talking now because I'm on HRT. So now I feel like, yes, I can take on that challenge, and I can see who Joy is now, and who is that person? What do I want to do? It's a bit like Henrietta was saying about having the option to kind of, or the opportunity to kind of look at yourself, you know, and say, okay, well, who am I now? I don't have to be Joy of, you know, before. I can be this person that's come out. There's still be parts of me that is there, but it is like evolution. It is like, this is the new you now. And I think if you can accept that, it's like, for instance, you know, when I don't know about you, but in my younger years, I always just think I used to lose weight. And then it's like 5 years later, I'd pull out a dress and I'd be like, oh my God, did I get into that?
Yes.
You know, and that kind of goes on through your life where you think, oh my God, and then you're like, oh my God, did I get into that? And I think it's a bit like the menopause as well. You've just got to find a way to accept this you and not harbor on the old new so much, but think this is the new you.
And if science has really got this magic pill, HRT, which I have to put my hands up and say I resisted, and my menopause journey was probably 7 to 10 years and impacted. I mean, that's probably why it's it's a favorite topic of mine because it impacted my life severely.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, the consequences just ricocheted all the way out. And now I sort of think, why didn't I take that pill?
Exactly. Because we've got this whole thing about we have to get through it ourselves, you know?
So, you know, probably, Henrietta, you'd be able to speak about this in endocrinology of the menopause transition. Has science caught up? Is there really a magic pill? Or why are so many people afraid to take it? Why was I afraid to take it?
Listen, I think I don't think there's a sad kind of bombshell here, but I don't think there's any magic pill for anything in life. I think it's very, you know, the incredible thing about the body is that we are all scientific marvels. Our bodies are extraordinary things, and we still don't understand it enough. It's so complex, and it's, you know, it is amazing. But what we do know is that when one part of the body is out, one system is out of balance, so too is the rest of the system. So by addressing any changes, hormonal changes that might be happening, which is, so to kind of go a step back for anybody that doesn't know, or if it's of interest, that what is happening when you're going through that menopausal journey, and in that I include the perimenopause as well, is that your ovaries are beginning to stop producing eggs. We're beginning to stop ovulating, and that process of ovulating is what produces our estrogen and our progesterone. So that menstrual cycle that we have is what generates our production of estrogen and progesterone, and that's what gives us that hormonal balance through those kind of menstruating years. When we start to go through the perimenopause, that becomes more erratic. So we kind of don't stop ovulating straight away. We sometimes ovulate and then we sometimes don't. And so there's an erratic kind of dance between a high or low of estrogen or progesterone, and the ratio goes completely out of balance. And that's what causes symptoms. So HRT, so when we go through the perimenopausal stage, those things are out of kilter, but they're not deficient yet. We haven't stopped completely producing them. When we go through the menopause, and that's defined as something retrospectively, so that's 12 months without menstruation, so you can only define it retrospectively. That's when you are then not ovulating at all. So you are very limited production of estrogen, because there are lots of different types of estrogen as well. So no longer are you, when you're at that stage, producing estrogen from your ovaries, you're producing it from your fat cells, and you're producing it from your adrenal glands, which is like your internal stress management system. Which is why women do need to hold on to a little bit more weight when we go through the menopause. And that's why don't fight nature as much as we want to. And again, I think that's, we've got to call into question our conversation around weight in society, because I think that the other flip side to the menopause conversation is we can have it and we can do it all, and I'm going to stay really slim, and I'm going to have a workout program that burns me out 5 days a week. And we carry on at a pace that actually wasn't really very healthy before we went into menopause. So I think that's the kind of watch out that I see coming through the door as well.
Yeah.
But so HRT, to go back to your original question, HRT can be a really brilliant part of that puzzle, of that protocol to put the pieces of the puzzle back in place. But it is by no means the only thing. There are restrictions to it, because, you know, we know that those changes in that estrogen and progesterone affect things like the immune system, the digestive system, brain function, bone health. And so actually what we need to be doing is to ensure that we are supporting our body holistically, so the environment in which HRT is received is sound and healthy, and can carry on us through that postmenopausal stage as well. Because I think one thing that has happened historically is that in orthodox medicine, women have been left on HRT for far too long and not checked. And it's a constant dance between these hormones. And so you need regular checks. And actually, if you're needing to stay on HRT, then I would say that there's a secondary issue that needs to be looked at. So it can be a really important part of a picture, but I would say very much do it holistically and with the guidance of you know, a holistic functional medicine practitioner or something of that ilk, someone of that ilk.
Thank you, Henrietta. That's really helpful, actually, that little synopsis.
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah, that really, I like the way you explained that. That was really good.
Yeah. And I mean, it would be great if, you know, we get these letters from the NHS saying you need to come for your smear, you need to come for your breast exam. Wouldn't it be great if we could say, right, you need to come for your hormone level testing,
Yeah.
and we can place you on the whole, on the spectrum, and we can tell you what's out of whack, what's out of sync. I mean, maybe that's what we need to be lobbying for, because I'm thinking, really, how our responsibility now is to really use our voices, I think, in making these things happen and making these changes, so that the women who are coming up behind us don't have to sort of scurry around looking. I mean, I know the information is there, but it doesn't seem to be that easy.
Yeah.
That would be
quickly.
yeah,
that I
ahead.
think also the fear was there was lots of talk about breast cancer associated with HRT.
Yes.
And I think that was that's just stuck in a lot of women's mind. They haven't really kind of investigated. But if you have a breast cancer in your family, they wouldn't put you on HRT because there is a risk. Right. And like Henrietta said, there are lots of other alternatives as well that you can use.
So I think the final question, or is there, have you thought of a way of marking? Would that help, as you talk about this being a holistic whole, that the culture, the state of your health, you know, your environment, all those stresses have an effect on the way you experience it, possibly. Would it help, or is it just a fantasy of mine that we mark the ushering in of a new time of life?
It'd be different to coordinate though, wouldn't it? Like when would that be? Because everyone's so different. Like, you mean just have like a menopause day? That's, well,
we've got that sort of like at your 51st, say, you know, like we do the 21st. Could we do a 51st? I mean, is it irrelevant? What are your thoughts on it?
I mean, I think one of the beautiful things about some more Eastern cultures is that they have these sort of coming of age rituals and celebrations of these transitions. And you know, even when it comes to childbirth, you know, in some cultures, women are really taken into the fold of the women in their family and nurtured and looked after. And I'm all for ritual. I think we've lost so much of that. And I think we've lost touch with a lot of cultural wisdom as well, community wisdom, and particularly down the female lineage. But I would say that that's a wider conversation that actually is for men as well. I think it's but yeah, I think yeah, I mean, I don't want to take up too much airspace, but yeah.
Suzanne, what are your thoughts on it?
I mean, I do like the idea of some kind of ritual recognition, but then I kind of think maybe you wouldn't be in the mood to
yes
get up to a party.
Hope you have fun, but I won't be there.
No, exactly.
So yeah, maybe you know, it's something that everyone does in their own individual way, and at the time that works for them. And I kind of thought of it as maybe a recognition of a celebration of yourself, but also a thank you to the people in your life who have, you know, supported you when you haven't been at your best because of PMS or whatever it is, and who, you know, helped you through hard times. So it maybe it's a personal thing for each woman, or how they would want to mark that, because I do think it's worth, like we said at the start of this, celebrating the good that comes out of it, whether that's sort of like identifying who you are, or you know, embarking on a new chapter in your life, whatever it might involve. So I do like the idea of marking it somehow, but perhaps it's something personal to each woman, how they actually do it.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I'm sorry, a bit like a dog with a bone, but if there's like, for example, I do think men are really do not have an idea, don't really understand. We don't barely understand what we're going through, never mind them. And there's a huge responsibility really for for them to pick up a book and go, oh, okay, so it says here that this is what's happening now. And this, you know, like, we are having a baby. That's the phrase now, isn't it? We're having a baby. My partner and I are having a baby. So we are
going through the menopause. Yeah. And it really is a we, because they experienced everything with me, you know. It's like, part of the reason why I thought I need to get something is because I was horrible. I was irritable. I was impatient. You know, I was like, but I would sit, I've got 2 boys. So I would sit them down and say, look, I am so sorry about that little moment ago. And I would tell them why, you know, whether any of it got in or not, I would explain, because I think that's really important. If you don't let men know what's happening, you know, they're not going to go and find out by themselves. They're not, well, I don't think they are. My family wouldn't. But I think we have to involve them and explain to them what's happening, because when my sons grow up and they have wives, hopefully, you know, when that happens, they'll be able to say, oh yes, I remember that, my mom was going through that. Whereas I have no recollection of my mom going through the menopause, like no discussion, no warnings, no anything. So I think it's important for us to include men in this.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I tell you something, the way I have a daughter and a son, and the way they understand their partners, or where the partners understand when my daughter's on a period, or my son understands when his girlfriend's on a period, and you know, that level of understanding, mate, I'm like, they're not going to take any. My daughter has, you know, and so in a way we need to borrow something from the youngers here, really, don't we? And have that level of education, because I'm astounded. My daughter was telling me that boyfriend has said, well, you know, the tampons are in the cupboard, I've stocked up. I'm like, what?
Yes, I know. That was something you would hide, wouldn't you? Your worst nightmare would be that your boyfriend would find your tampon.
I do feel like there's a need to have the conversation around menopause with women at a much earlier age, though, as well, and men, and because, you know, what we see, what I see quite a lot with women is that they sort of use up all their resources before they've even, so, you know, if you liken them going through the menopause to running a marathon, it's like they've used up all of their snacks and everything in that kind of strive and thrive kind of,
because a lot of women don't realize that the perimenopause isn't the menopause. That's the first problem. You see, they just assume I'm going through the menopause.
This is exactly it. And so, and the kind of sick joke of nature is that a lot of the symptoms in that perimenopausal stage are actually very synonymous to burnout. You know, exhausted, no libido, feeling irritable, feeling low. You know, a lot of these symptoms you can push aside as, oh God, 100%. I must be either really depressed or I'm just exhausted. And so I think if there was that earlier awareness of how the signs to look out for, that these aren't normal, we don't just have to put up with it, and also what you can do to kind of build up your resources so you've got enough in the tank to get through the menopause as well, because from a biochemical and physiological point of view, there's a lot that you can do to prepare for it as well, a little bit like preconception support before getting into pregnancy.
Yeah, I think there's also the benefit of involving men in those discussions is, I sort of see it in the workplace, because when I remember a day when I was, you know, when I was working in the corporate world, and I remember just looking around the office and thinking to myself, where are all the women over 50? There was one.
Yes.
And I was like, what happened? What happens? Do they just disappear? What?
They cull them.
And the thing is, I think that, you know, a lot of workplaces are not supportive of women who are going through menopause. And so the more we involve men in these discussions, and sadly at the moment it's changing, but at the moment men are the ones on the boards, in the management meetings, who are making the decisions that impact everyone's work life, their career development and so on. So if there was more awareness and recognition of this that affects half their workforce, surely we would hopefully see some new practices coming in where there's more support for women in the corporate world, and we retain the talent that these women, you know, these women are huge talents, and yet we seem to be losing them. And I think that, you know, let's involve men in these discussions.
Yeah, and I think lastly on that point is a lot of women set up their own business and go into self-employment. And could it be because of the negative attitudes in the workplace? And,
Exactly.
you know, so that's an interesting thing.
More space to be themselves and have their own opinions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I remember I was running a business, and that business stopped. And I thought, well, I'll just go and get a job because I'm very qualified in marketing and the lot. But by then I was 50. And even though I didn't put it on my CV, obviously my length of, you know, my different credits on there would show that obviously I'm older. And when I'd go and meet them, if I managed to get an interview, you could see straight away they were looking at me and thinking, no, she's too old. So I do think that perception about women in their 50s needs to change as well, because we do still have value to add.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Huge amount of wisdom.
Yeah.
One last short little sort of love note to the women coming behind us.
It's okay. You will get through this. It's okay. You really will get through this. I've not heard of anyone who doesn't get through it. You know, the journey may not be that great, but everyone eventually, as far as I'm aware, gets through the menopause and comes out the other end. And I think focus on coming out of it and not what's happening while you're in it.
Beautiful. Thank you.
I would say talk about it. I think let's bring it out into the open.
I would echo both of those things, absolutely. And I think preparation as well. I think preparation for this period of time and that realistic expectation, it's not going to be easy, but dive in, get involved into your own experience of it as early on as you can.
Yeah.
I would say, think of the orcas, think of the female killer whales, who are the only.
I was a bit like that, I have to say.
They keep very young, don't they?
Well, no, they are the only mammals and women who live quite a few decades into the second half of their life after reproduction ceases. And look at them, they're awesome. So that's my takeaway. But thank you, ladies. This has been absolutely beautiful and
amazing.
Such a pleasure meeting you, and I hope we can meet again.
Absolutely.
I love that. And I've learned so much, even though I'm going through it. I've really learned so much from you guys.
Absolutely.
Lovely to be involved in. Thank you very much.
It's I'm sad to leave, but thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.